Hello and welcome to the third of 4 sessions of Cryptomancer, a that's how he puts it here, a fantasy role-playing game about hacking. And we are deep in it. Our crew, who are evading the risk eaters, are at the sort of tail end of their planning and investigation and mapping from last time. But we'll come to that in just a second. If you're watching this, this is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which is an online gaming community. We have a Patreon to support that, which includes a zine, includes a blog, includes multiple podcasts, including a new one we just started this weekend. Farrier's Bellows, I think, is the name of it. I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I'm kind of excited. You can find out all about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. All the details will be there. And if you like this video, go ahead and check out the rest of my channel. There are lots of other AP videos here. So last time, our group was in the city of Crucible. They had returned after a preliminary adventure where they had been imprisoned. They are battling against the risk eaters. They are building up their underground network, their cells, and so on. We did a little bit of purchasing of things, and the group decided on a crypto admin for their safe house, as well as two to be named later, essentially cells that they can decide on. We can hit those whenever you want in play. And they were asked to essentially spark a war between two pretty nasty criminal gangs in the city of Crucible, two that had gathered and consolidated power. They found out that the risk eaters wanted to keep this war brewing for years, to keep it just simmering just below the boil, to destabilize the city over the long term. But your patron, not your Patreon, you can give $1 a month for your Cryptomancer, Nancy. So anyway, your patron found out about this and asked you to look into it. The two forces are the Coppermen and the Silverhands, and we essentially looked into them and mapped out who they were, mapped out their connections, found links and ties, and I'll have you three kind of go over your sense of the information here in a second. But you found some good hooks and entry points for that. Now we can still do legwork today. That is certainly on the table, or we can start operational work. It's going to be entirely up to you as to how you wish to do this. You have not alerted your targets yet. We do know that there's a little bit of heat coming from the Coppermen and a little bit of heat coming from the Silverhands right now. The clocks are only ticked up a little ways, so it's still pretty open for us. With that in mind, are there any mechanical things I need to deal with? Answer, Sherry?
I feel fine mechanically.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So let's assume that we described your safe house as having to go through this bathhouse, through the back, past the hanging laundry and things like that, and down into a room which is not particularly, a meeting room. It happens to have chairs, and happens to have some space that you can live in there. And is probably adjacent to a pretty heavily reinforced and secured space where your crypto admin kind of stays in there. And then every once in a while, he comes out in the middle of the night and makes himself some beans and then goes back in. And that is probably his deal there. Let's talk about what, I think at this point, you're discussing what you think needs to come next. And so let us start with Rook at the table, start you at this meeting. If you want to go over what you know, or you want to talk about things or so on. Let's start with you. I'm going to take a drink.
Sorry. We know that the Coppermen, right? That's the Coppermen. The organization is, the headman is Barnabas, and all of his lieutenants are his children. So essentially what we've got is the joy of the family interactions, which are both more loyal and more highly fraught than a typical set of lieutenants. So the three ones are Zinka. She's the youngest. She has the least amount of power or pull, apparently, and she has magical talents. She is involved and has a soft spot for someone for Unaya, who is a member of the other group, the Silverhands, and more specifically a member of the Bone Harvesters, which is a terrible, feared, secretive assassin group. So there's a big glaring mess right there. The other one is Talania, who was adopted by Barnabas when she was young, and she's elf or half elf, but raised very human and incredibly loyal. And then Junior, who is a very pretty thug. So maybe not top brain, but he's got a feral wit to him. So, and lots of lovers. And he does not trust Talania. We also have the very interesting thing that the most likely risk eater in there is Barnabas's wife. He's probably unaware. His first wife's wife looks to have been engineered. And Soraka, his second wife, was in place to step in. So, again, that's a target that we have. So that's my recap on those. There's a few other little details, but that's what I've got. I mean, I don't have any plans yet. I think a restatement is good to begin with.
Deltra, do you have any thoughts you want to add to that, or things that you think are more interesting than other bits?
I mean, I think that's a good summary of the Coppermen, for sure. I have some thoughts of plans we might do. I have some thoughts about overall strategy. I don't know if we want to. Do we want to summarize the Silverhands first?
Yeah. Do you want to go over what we know about the Silverhands?
So we know that the leader Hakata has a romantic relationship going with one of her two lieutenants, which is not known to the other. Also know she hates elves, so probably any if we can convince her that Talania is going to become a more powerful force among the Coppermen, that might be helpful. The Bone Harvesters are all loyal directly to Hakata. We know a fair bit about how they're organized. Let's see. The Don'ts is the one she has the
Yeah.
Don'ts, and his face has been encrypted. And I don't know what else. Grimport is the other lieutenant. I guess he also hates Talania.
Yes.
I don't remember why.
I don't think you got a reason for that yet.
Yeah, and then the risk eater, suspected risk eater, I guess, within the ranks is Pad.
a kind of a middleman conciliator. So then, Daneric, having heard that summary, are there anything that has been left out from those two discussions that you think is particularly vital?
Not information-wise. We have some like basic tactics moving forward. You know, the point of identifying the risk eater contacts in there is to try and keep them quiet or shielded from what's going on, so that the risk eaters don't step in and try and tamp things down before we can really get it going. Dance is like a whole big pile of explosive, emotional, betrayal, loyalty sort of messes all over the place. There's so many different ways we could turn him against other people or other people against him. He's just like a walking raw ego. Grimport's going to be sort of our the person who's putting on the brakes with the silver hands. So ways that we can turn people against him or find some way to get him personally worked up past his normal reservations are going to be good. And then, yeah, Sherry, you mentioned Cordoba, and I don't quite remember him.
He was the negotiator between the two groups. So he was sort of a neutral gang leader who they both had smashed, but they still respected. And he would be the one that they would send messages between the two.
Also, in the Bone Harvesters, we found out a little bit about like what their network security is like, and got some inroads there. And also had sort of a passing idea that we could fake making one of a new Bone Harvester out of Hakata's gang fairly easily if we thought that would help.
You would just need, I mean, if you wanted him to think he was a bone harvester, that's pretty easy. You know that the bone harvesters have their own shard network embedded in their masks, and you know that they have a sigil with an encryption to allow people within the gang to recognize that they're bone eaters when that's displayed.
But yeah, a lot of my focus last time was on the silver hands, so I've got more of an idea on tactics for them and less for the coppermen.
All right. So do we need another once around? Is there other details you guys want to follow up on, or do you want to discuss options? You know, it's free form. So if I swing it back around to you, Rook, what are you feeling?
I think that it makes sense that we discuss some options and then maybe have a couple once arounds to follow up other information we may need to get that going. So that's my preference is put some pieces or possibilities out there and then see which ones might work.
Okay.
So I think that although within the ranks of each of these, there's a lot of things that we can turn them on each other, we have to do something that's going to get them at, like, it would be good if every action we took ratcheted up the tension between the two groups. So it was why Quildoba was a good target, at least at some point in the thing, to take him out. So it was difficult to negotiate, but so that also they would blame the other side if we can make it look that way. So just so that they go, okay, someone set this up. So that's a thing that we have to do with a lot of knowledge of the other two groups, so that it looks like to them who know each other very well that it's the other. I like the idea of at least temporarily neutralizing the risk eaters, putting them in some situation where they can't be there to handle things.
Yeah, everything we do, they'll be working to counteract. So
Mm-hmm.
limiting their ability to do that first, I think, should be our top priority.
And similarly, like I said, Grimport isn't an information leak like the Risk Eaters are, but he'll be doing the same thing. He'll be trying to calm things down.
Okay.
Potentially. I mean, his gang was destroyed by these two. He may have found himself a safe position by working peaceably between the two, but he may not have a great deal of affection for either of them. He could be an asset instead of a liability.
Yeah, we might be able to turn him.
Well, we do know that he doesn't know that Dance and Takata are literally in bed with each other. So, right? Because we're talking about Dance? Or, I mean, Grimport?
I was talking about Grimport. I think Brian was talking about Kuldoba.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
That's all right.
Okay. So, do we want to do some things to ratchet up tension for, like, within the, I don't know, what seems like a good place to start? If I think to some ways killing Quildoba will be the go, but it doesn't mean that we can't prep a few things before then.
Brian was suggesting, I think it's interesting, the thought of trying to, like, seeing if we can convince Kuldoba to help us in this plan. Because he is already embedded as a trusted messenger, and he has good reason to hate them both. So it's not unreasonable to think we could convince him. That
we, like, stage his death or something like that?
Yeah, maybe that could be part of it. But yeah,
I mean, if he just has a preference between the two groups, if he could be convinced to take a side and
okay,
take down one or the other.
All right, so we got a put Quildoba off the bubble one way or another.
Yeah. Like you said, we need to separate the two Risk Eater points from the rest of their groups. I think probably turning Hakata and Dance together against Grimport would be the easiest way to remove his roadblocks.
Isolate Grimport too?
See if we can't stir up something between him and Dance, get Dance to bring Hakata against Grimport, kill him, ostracize him, stop listening to him, whatever.
And I believe one of the plans that was suggested last time was you have Chirana, who's of Dance's gang, who's the one who killed the mage who encrypted Dance's face. And just to remind you, one of the ideas he had and the reason she's on the table was essentially making Dance believe that, in fact, Chirana is in Grimport's pocket.
That Grimport had some sort of intentional hand in getting his face encrypted away. I think those are all good moves to start eating away at the détente, to start letting tensions that work up between them keep going and not being tamped down.
And as far as Serica goes, I think, seeing as she was Junior's, the replacement for Junior's mother, I think perhaps using him against her.
Nice.
Okay.
I have thoughts on how we might do that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think a good initial round is going to be digging into Kuldoba and finding out if there is any way we can turn him, and taking the breaks and peacemakers out of each group. Does that sound like round one?
And I guess if we could somehow somehow deal with Pad as well. But yeah.
Do we need another information gathering round?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To help you focus in on what you want to do. So let's go ahead and do that. And that may help you narrow some things in. So Rook, I was doing you as the start of the order, so let's continue with that. What is it that you want to do?
Me, right. Come at me. I was just still taking notes. Okay. So I think that the first thing that we have to do is that if we're talking about putting Quildoba on the bubble or getting him sort of like on one side or the other, is that we have to get a sense of his sense of what would happen if there wasn't an all-out war with these two. Like, what is it that's going to allow us to move him, if that makes any sense? So we have to have so we need more of a sense of his outlook on this,
Okay.
which I think we can probably get by, essentially, I don't think it was very difficult to get that, in the sense that I don't think there would be no reason for him to not talk about it in some way.
All right. So, but let's see what kind of depth of success you can turn out there. So let's look at you. What is going to be your methodology for doing that, Rook?
I think that in some ways, probably actually more deception, like being there and talking to him myself, because I'm pretty good with that stuff. I think that's how I remember. I could be wrong. I have a decent presence and that sort of thing. Cunning.
Right. Liar allows you to ignore a botch on that. So, so absolutely. So that will be 4d10 and 1d6. Difficulty is going to be a 6 because he is a little paranoid about things given his position and so on.
Okay. And of course, I've forgotten the resolution system, so I'm going to roll these, and then you can remind me of the resolution.
Right, so
I've played too many different systems this last week. So, okay, so I'm submitting that bottom row of them.
Okay.
I submitted. That was dumb. I need to re-roll the selected.
Nope.
Which, of course, requires reselecting. All right, here we go. I don't see any botches. I only see one success.
So you've got one success there. So what is then, if we do this sort of PBTA style, what is your big question?
My big question is just, what's his take on if the two went at it together? I mean, if they went on it full bore. Is it who's going to get hurt, and what would it? Does that make any sense? Essentially, what is the fallout? Because they decimated so many other groups already.
Describe to me what this looks like, what this scene looks like, where you're talking to him. Where are we at? What is the context of it, do you think?
I think it's a pretty basic, having some drinks and just having been at, in the area for a while, and then finding out that he does have that role, that he talks to both groups, and her being from somewhere else where she just asks a question that isn't that threatening of a question.
And he will stop. He'll put down his pipe, gestures for someone to repack the bowl, has more tea brought. There are other people around, and he said that way of clearly he's given this some thought.
Okay.
This is something he's considered. He says, it's all going to depend on those, not them. We know Barnabas and Hecata, they're evenly matched. It's going to depend on their lieutenants. It's going to depend on who rises to the top. If, let us say, and again, this is all hypothetical, I have the greatest respect for Grimport, but he is not a man to prosecute a war. But he is a man who knows how to protect his things. So, all-out war, Grimport rises, he will probably be able to defend the holdings. That's my opinion. Dance is more aggressive. He has a lot of old issues unresolved. If he rises to the top, it's going to be very messy. And the problem being that Hecata has built her organization on being delicate, on being careful, being cautious, strategic. When Daunt follows orders, but when he doesn't have orders, he goes with his instincts. It's more complicated on Barnabas's side. If Talia were to rise to a position of authority, then we would find out exactly how much Barnabas actually trusts her. But I think if she were in charge, she would win. I think she could do it. I think she has the intelligence and guts and viciousness to carry out a war. Zinka may be a close second, but she's been pushed down so far. She has her own issues there. I'm not sure about what happens if Junior takes the lead. But I don't imagine that's great for the Copperman. This is all hypothetical. Ask me a few days from now, and my opinion may have changed, may be completely different. This is all just smoke in the wind, and he'll exhale to make his point.
Okay.
Does that sound like fair info?
Yes.
Okay. Let's come to Deltra. Deltra, what do you want to look into? What do you want to do? What do you want to know?
Deltra is thinking about trying to approach Junior as someone who knew his mother and knows details of what happened to her.
Ooh.
So
okay.
To do that, Deltra needs to know at least what's known about those events, so she can, yeah.
All right.
Her story can match or contradict in a way that makes sense. that'll hold up.
Absolutely. So what do you think this is? Is this deception to be asking around on things, or is it charm to try and track down and speak to people, get it out of them that way? You can also put your crypto admin on getting querying things as well.
Let's work with the crypto admin. Just whatever the public information that's out there.
All right. Well, here's what we'll do with that. I think let's have you do a charm roll, because you are kind of asking around, and he will actually allow you to ignore a botch in the process of that. Does that seem like a fair, like, supplemental thing? And you'll get a little more basic info just because you're putting him to task on it.
Okay.
Difficulty is 6. So that is 2 successes, and you get to ignore that botch on the D6.
Okay.
So let me look. So that is an extra success. So she was at the time slightly estranged from her husband, Barnabas. They'd had a modest falling out, but publicly were, still together, obviously. And she was at one of these cliffside holdings that that Barnabas owns, and staying there. And on a walk, she fell off the cliff, and they found her body washed up a couple of days later. It was a 2-2 tragic story, a tragic accident. And that's the basic stuff that you will hear about that. Now, 2 successes, I'm going to give you 2 kind of follow-up questions. PBTA style.
What was Serica's position at the time that happened?
So Serica's position is that essentially she was a tutor and instructor for Junior at that point. He was still relatively young, and she was, basic alphabet and that kind of thing. So she was present in the household generally. People regarded her as ambitious, and that was certainly known at the time. What's your second question?
I guess I want to know what the relationship between Junior and Serica is now.
Okay. At first, it was pretty clearly tense when, but he's kind of grown up with her as the mother in the household. When she's been active, when she's been seen as a person who gives suggestions and instructions and things like that, Junior clearly doesn't care for that, but generally she keeps herself to the background. And it doesn't hurt that he sleeps with her sometimes.
Okay.
That is, of course, not a known public fact. But that seems to be in his whole set of various conquests. Let's come to Daneric.
That was okay. So that was a very nice point on Soraka there. So Pod, I believe we're close to the point of tipping things off, and just like Soraka, we need to get him out of the way. But he's ingratiated himself into the Silver Hands as everybody's good buddy. Like
Everybody
maybe they won't go to war over Pod, but everybody's gonna like do something to try and help Pod out, look after him, that sort of thing. So I think
all be upset if something happens to Pod.
Yeah.
If it's an accident, they'll all be sad.
So I think killing him tips things off too fast, but all we need is for him to be out of circulation. So if he came down with like a really bad illness or food poisoning that lasted for a week or more, he couldn't even like think clearly or get up out of bed to even go to these meetings and these war councils.
So you want to make a particularly undetectable poison, something that will make him under the weather, as it were?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's have you roll alchemy.
And as for that, actually, like delivering it and keeping it coming to him, I think it might be a good time to bring in one of our gangs.
Okay.
Because we're going to need people that like work in and out of these groups.
So what kind of gang do you want then?
I forget exactly the mechanics, but I think I know we had wanted to have like one very close gang and one deniable gang.
Yeah. So the close gang is 4 dice. The deniable gang is just 2 dice.
Gotcha.
And let me give you some examples of cells that you can do. Agitators, cell swords, cleaners, code clerics, gossipers, bounty hunters, negotiators, scouts, people to essentially do a shard storm to disrupt a shard network.
Whoa.
Spies, smugglers, and unlikely ally.
I think somewhere in that spy smuggler area, and I think deniable because as we don't know how far Pod is in with the risk eaters, but someone closely connected to us, who knows, that might give away something to him.
So these are people that are within the Coppermen, or these outsiders to the Coppermen?
It would be the Silver Hands.
Silver Hands. Sorry, Silver Hands.
I'm thinking outside, like some sort of like household cleaning staff, somebody that Pod might not notice, but that could also conceivably change out over time.
Okay, so Silvermen, Silver Hands, domestics. All right. So what do you want to do? And what I'll say is if you can send them to do an action on their own, or you can use them to supplement your action.
Gotcha. I think I want to use them to supplement my action of making this super awesome undetectable poison that will keep him like very sick but not kill him, sort of thing.
So they're the ones that are helping you deliver this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's have you do the alchemy for creating a particularly difficult to detect, debilitating but not deadly poison.
Cool. So it's going to be 3 and 2, but I have my alchemy thing. So it's going to be the top row of each set. So ignore that botch. 6 or 8.
So yeah, you've got two successes on that.
Nice.
So it's. Are you more interested in it taking him out long term, or are you more interested in it not being detectable?
Taking him out long term.
Okay.
I'm hoping with this situation there'll be less investigation into, is this soup poisoned?
So then we'll say that it will, once delivered, it'll put him under the weather for 2 weeks, but people
Nice.
he may figure out that he's been poisoned, that kind of thing. So how do you deliver this?
It's I think it's with like a dinner, like a stew, because that gives him like the longest time to be asleep and not noticing the onset of this sort of disease, so that hopefully he's highly incapacitated by the time he might think about like, hey, I'm feeling weird from that meal. Yeah, so I think it's like a new girl in the kitchen or whatever who's working on the soup that night, and there's some extra spices that she pulls out of her apron to put into the soup.
Okay. So you're gonna let them work on their own?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're gonna roll 2 dice, a 2d10 and 3d6.
Whew. Okay, I'll use the bottom row of each set. Oh, it looks like a null. Unless it was a really easy task.
No, it is not. It is a 6.
Then I guess I want to spend a risk to turn that botch into a success.
Turn that frown upside down. Okay. Then I will add 8 to it. By the way, I did roll for the risk eaters coming after you this, and I didn't get below a 6. So, all right. So that will make it then a net 2 successes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So she comes by, she's on the household staff. She's there for a day. Food is a common thing, and Pod's not a person who has taste testers or mages to check food or anything like that. Hakata probably does, but Pod's just a good old, he has to get along. So he's always eating and drinking stuff. And there is that bit where he takes the soup, some kind of white olive and pig lung soup that he's eating, and slurps that down. And what is the effect of this? What is he faint? Is he weak? Is he in the can? What is the general problem that he will experience here?
I think he gets really like pale and shaky and sweaty sort of by the end of the meal. Like he's not feeling it. He's got to turn in early. And yeah, it's sort of like it's inducing a fever, and it's got him like shaking and sweating. And
so certainly echoes food poisoning.
Yeah.
He'll say, oh, bad lung, and so with that, by the next morning, Pod is in bed. It'll probably be a couple of days before anybody notices that he's sick. People get sick all the time. It is a fantasy setting. So he kind of curls himself up
And that onset of like happening at the dinner should help too. Of there'll be a couple people to say like, "Oh, I saw him the other night. He looked like he was coming down with something."
Absolutely, yeah. So for the moment, Pod
Okay.
is off the table without drawing additional heat or attention. Rook, do we want to bring the group back together, or you want to do a once around again?
I don't know. That's sort of interesting.
The pod thing gives you a couple of week window.
Mm-hmm.
People may start being nervous about it. You may be able to use that after a week, but you've got some time there.
Yeah, I almost want to set it up so that Barnabas discovers Junior with his wife.
Okay.
Because
So
I think that's a
seems
really good
like
way to make Soraka not super the person they're listening to.
So that's going to be probably involved. What do you suppose are the steps to getting that to happen?
I'm guessing that though that was secret information, it means that there are some people who know it, right? Other than that, I mean, it's really coming down to figuring out when it happens and then doing something that's going to bring Bernard or Barnabas back. So, or make it just so obvious that everyone knows. Ooh, that's easy. That's much easier. So it's really just about figuring out when those two are together and then doing something that turns it into a big to-do. And the easiest thing is something like the door of the boudoir gets, essentially jammed shut and requires assistance to get it back open or something dumb like that. I mean, it just has to be like some stupid thing that causes people to have to gather around that area.
That's interesting. Okay.
So does that make any sense that it would be?
So step one is figuring out when and where they're meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let's assume that now this is probably a 3-person job.
Okay.
To do this. So let's assume that it's the 3 of you together on this particular task. So Rook, what is the legwork that you do to find that?
Well, let me see. It's got to be arranged. I'm thinking that pretty good at tracking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind being able to follow and find out like where their assignations are.
Okay.
And if there's any kind of schedule or signal for when it goes. So I guess that's tracking.
Okay. That seems fair to me.
All right. Yeah, so I'll try to figure out that without causing too much of a problem.
Well, then let's have you make a tracking roll.
Okay. Bottom row. Wow. Sometimes roll for your party. It's not okay. So re-rolling that bottom row there. So I got a bunch of 6s and 9s.
So I'm going to say this is a little more challenging. I mean, this is a difficult thing, but you get a success here.
All right. So it was an 8.
Yeah. So it will take some time to figure this out. But his mother clearly she or rather, let me use her real name, just so it's less creepy. Essentially, Soraka, from time to time, goes to a kind of a salon for her hair to be done up, for makeup to be applied, to be redressed. You suspect that she does this on a regular basis to get information from Junior, like every few weeks, though variable time, but certainly she uses that as an opportunity to quietly have him up off site, and use him to ascertain and to manipulate.
Okay. And like essentially the thing that she's in, or the situation, what? Oh, I can only get one question. I'm sorry. So
let's say this. So it is what you'll find out is that she has an appointment for the salon coming up in a few days. It is a it is a well-appointed place of perfumes and silks and bathing and hair being tended to, all of that. It is a place for the wealthy women of the city to, show off and indulge in self-care, as it were.
Interesting. All right.
How about we fake an attack by the Silverhands, like a assassination attempt on her while she's at this salon, so that Barnabas can, think he's coming to her rescue, and then instead finds her there with his son.
That's interesting.
That certainly plays into your fake bone eater. Bone hunter.
Bone harvester.
Bone harvester.
Bone people.
Bone dancer. Whatever.
Bone lumberjacks.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. We could bring in a new guy and send him on his first mission, sort of thing.
And it wouldn't necessarily have to have Barnabas on site if you're trying to do what you suggested, Rook, and just have a lot of people see it.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things is, since they're in there with all the makeups and stuff, one of the things that would be particularly effective is if they get doused with something that they can't easily get off of them. So,
like perfume, or
either a very scented perfume or a particularly bright and clingy color of rouge or something that will stick and mark them.
Oh, you want me to make a glitter bomb?
Oh, yes, please.
So then here's the next step is Anaric making a glitter bomb.
Like I do for wartime.
Yeah. It's a good thing you have assassin, which helps with these kinds of things.
Most abused talent on my character sheet. Oh Lord. Okay. Yeah, glitter bomb. It's why else do I have a walking alchemy lab?
Okay.
Ooh, oh my. It's 2 8s and then 3 below 6s, whatever the difficulty is.
So you've got 2 successes on that.
Nice.
So you have. Tell me 2 features of this bomb. Actually, 3. Give me 3 features.
Remote detonation.
Okay.
So we can make sure it goes off at just the right time. Incredibly sticky. Like, it may take them 3 or 4 days to take enough baths to get this stuff off.
Okay.
And we want to draw attention, so loud as hell.
Okay. So then you are essentially going to try and make a an assassin and send him with this bomb.
Yeah.
Is that my understanding?
Yeah, and we can even like trigger it maybe while he's still setting it or around. It would be neat if we could catch him in the glitter spray and really like, this is a bone harvester guy coming after you.
All right. Delta, what's your part in this plan?
Good question.
Are you on?
I think.
Site? Are you doing some advanced prep? What do you think?
I wonder if, because just okay, I'm gonna say what I'm thinking because I don't have it like formed exactly, but like
Yeah,
we want to get the information. Like the important thing is that this all gets back to Barnabas as far as like what it is going on. So I'm wondering if I could be some kind of like pose as someone like who like is just trying to like sell some information that what's going on in order to like get the right story to him.
So you want to make sure that his attention is on that there's something up with his.
Like I want to tip him off like right before it's gonna too late for him to actually prevent any of this from going down, but like
sure,
right as it's going down.
We do have some documentation with Soraka's, like her whereabouts and what she was doing that puts her in that thing that it was all too convenient that she slipped in to take the place of his former wife. So, I mean, you could
there you go.
That documentation.
Sell him that right at the same right at the right time.
Appointment.
All right.
Sounds good.
So tell me what is your in the spy trade? What is your legend? What is your cover identity? How do you present yourself?
I think I'm someone who was not a member of the Silver Hands, but was like employed. I'm like a disgruntled ex-employee of the Silver Hands who needs to make some money and get a bit of revenge for not being actually made a member.
So let's have you make a deception roll, I think.
Okay, how do I have in deception? It's a 3. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's 2 successes. So I'm assuming you're not going through Junior's track. Which of the other 2 lieutenants, the daughter, or are you going through Talania who's kind of your gateway in? You already last session established that trusted people. There's sort of chain of information for them.
Yeah, let's go for Talania.
Okay. And you suggest you have info. She presses, and eventually she says, "You get 2 minutes to make your case to my father." And I mean, because he meets with a lot of people during the day, so you're in and amongst that hubbub of that, and you're eventually brought into Barnabas's office. Multiple guards here, secured chamber. You can see a lot of stuff encrypted around. Everybody's got their shards and stuff, and they all have that kind of brown and orange raiment to mark them as coppermen. And Barnabas is behind his desk, fancy desk. That he like killed one of the other gang leaders on this desk at one point, and that the blood has kind of worked its way into the wood of this. And he looks up and he's like, "You have, my daughter says you have info to sell. 2 minutes." Reaches over, you see him turn this, one of a set of little sand timers on his desk. It's the smallest of them. Let's hear it.
I worked for Hakata for a while.
Okay.
She has lots of spies keeping an eye on you, as I'm sure you have, watching her.
We have people.
Well, they found something that I was able to take before I was tossed out.
Tossed out for what?
Doesn't matter. Their mistake.
All right, go on.
Well, I figure it'd be worth something to you to know.
If it's something interesting, you'll be rewarded in coin. But I don't buy things sight unseen.
All right. If I have your word, you'll pay me fairly once you see it. And I'll bring out, I was going to say I don't actually care if I get paid, but that's not entirely true. I wouldn't mind getting something while we're at it, but that's not the main point of this. So I'll go ahead and hand over the documentation we have.
Okay. That suggests some interesting things about the wedding, or about the death of his wife, and suggests some things about Soraka's current assignations, right?
Yeah, that she just has mixed loyalties, I guess. Right. And then I would just throw in that this what are we calling it? The salon is like her meeting place for whoever this other faction that she's working with, that she meets with to share information.
So this is good stuff. All right, you'll be paid. And he'll gesture and he'll say, the paymaster will go and give you your reward. And one of these guys steps forward and kind of gestures for you to head out. So how is it when they go to murder you that you get away? Like you saw when he was looking at the documentations about Soraka and his wife, no look of surprise come across his face. The other stuff clearly interested him, but when you get out, you already know that this is about to go badly.
Mm-hmm.
So just what is the method that you use to try and not get murdered?
I think, yeah, since we're all playing nice until we get to whatever is the convenient location for them to do this.
Yeah, he's walking out to conveniently isolated part.
Yeah, so I'm playing along until I see a moment where like I can run quickly around a corner and like break line of sight, so that I can then use my chameleon ability to then hopefully have them like run right past where I'm like up against a wall.
Then let's have you make an escape roll.
Okay. Escape. Okay. Let's get rid of these dice. Yikes.
Wow. Now, you can roll one botch, but not two.
Yeah, so I guess we will ignore one and then spend one. I forget what it's called.
Oh, increase the group's risk?
Yes, to end up with 2 successes.
All right. So describe to me what you do, like physically on screen. What do you? This guy's walking along. He's flying casual, but he's kind of scratched himself in the side, and that's like taken loosened the knife in its sheath, kind of thing. And he's you're talking. You've been charming. You look innocent, so it doesn't particularly threatened by you. What do we see?
Just all of a sudden at the right moment, when there's a corner or something, I can dash around. I just sprint at top speed and then round a corner and then just instantly up against a wall, chameleon, and then hopefully he runs by. You see me just kind of wait a moment for him to then round another corner, searching for me, and then I just slink off in the other direction.
Yeah, and you can push yourself up. You've got that spider thing, so you know how to get up high. So you can maneuver around carefully through here, and you got glamour too, right?
Yeah, I've got chameleon and glamour.
Oh yeah, so you get away from his line of sight, and before he can double back to check this area again. You're gone. You're a face in the crowd. You blend in among the coppermen. And
yeah, I also have some like changes of outfits, so I'm probably like got some other hood over, and some jacket that I pulled out and put on, and
The thing that will strike you is you're a little nervous as you kind of make your way out, because this big building. It's the HQ of this place is, you fully expect, some kind of alert to go down the line. But one of the things you'll realize is that this guy probably doesn't tell Barnabas that you got away. Like, that's the kind of discipline that's operating here is, yeah, they're good, they're loyal, but they don't want to talk about their fuck ups if they can hide them. And you will get out of there. Let's take a break. and then let's come back and glitter bomb the hell out of these lovers. Okay. So it's 17 after, so let's go. Let's take about an 8-minute break. when Sherry gets back, we'll get rolling here. And all right, so we're going to zoom in. So we've kind of been doing the macro level stuff. So I'm going to get a little bit into the gritty and the specific here. What do we know is set up? We know that you have specific information about when Junior is going to be at this beautiful, largish salon with all of these wonderful things, that he comes in through a quiet secret entrance. We know that she has to have some handmaiden / security who kind of keep an eye out for her and probably get him in. We know that you have set it up such that the timing will be right with Barnabas being informed, so that he will, if not in the immediate aftermath, in the reasonably soon aftermath, he will find out about what's going on. And we have a remote detonation glitter bomb. So I imagine this a little bit like a sort of Arabesque or Roman style bathhouse building. Couple of floors to it, some side rooms with water, private baths, steam, that kind of thing. And there are multiple areas within this place. You're fairly certain that given the privacy that she wants, she's probably on an upper floor of these steam bath places, probably one of these private chambers towards the back, one that actually has the pumped water and so on, and the boilers to heat it and that kind of thing. So the question is, what's the next step? Who needs to get in? Who needs to cover? What do you need to do?
Well, really, all we super need is to remote detonate, well, to get that glitter bomb into the place where they're at, and to make sure that we detonate it when they're in flagrante, I think is how you pronounce it, so that the glitter makes it very clear what the relationship is.
Okay.
We had talked about potentially getting a fake bone harvester recruit to do the bomb planting. Do we want to do that part?
Would that be good, or would it be better to do something quieter, like just have one of the employees drop that off or something like that, or get it in there sneakily in some way? Then that way we don't have to sacrifice a bone harvester, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Though we would need an explanation for why that thing would go off. That's interesting. So maybe the harvester, I don't know. Something would happen that would.
Well, I mean, we know all of those lieutenants like information sources, so we could just drop information afterwards that it was the Silver Hands in some generic way.
Okay, well, we could just let him guess who it was.
Right. Plus, you've already provided him information that seems to be sourced from the Silver Hands that this is going on.
Right. And here's the thing that's going to burn him is the Silver Hands knew this before he did.
So you need to figure out where exactly in the building the assignation is taking place. You need to kind of infiltrate to get that established. And then you need to have somebody get in and plant the bomb in a way that you're secure about.
Yep. And if it's got remote detonation, that means some sort of shard, which means that Rook could be well, this may be embarrassing, but watching for the perfect time.
Oh, yeah. So if we could get a shard from Junior's network, get a hold of one of those, I could definitely watch. I think that would be easy. So the trick is getting that glitter bomb in there. So what is the kind of privacy thing on this? I mean, can you just go in?
It definitely, I mean, it is a high fashion place. The ordinary, and this is no offense to any of you, the ordinary scrub isn't going to be in here except as a servant. You know, and you know, it's them and the staff are the sort of the two points of contact here. The actual sort of infosec is modest because it's not seen as particularly necessary for their business.
Excellent. Which of us is best at blending in? Is that going to be you?
That's probably Deltra.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I could sneak it in.
Okay. And then we're going to have to bring down one of Junior's things after he's gone in to get a hold of that shard.
Oh, well, that's what I was saying. Since the bomb is remote detonation, the bomb itself has a shard in it. That you can be
Oh,
watching.
that's awesome. That's the best thing ever. Then that's the shard I will watch from.
Okay. So in that case, we've got getting the information on where they're meeting, and we have planning the bomb and not getting spotted. Does that seem like the three tasks that are at hand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who of the three of you, let's kind of divvy out the task, who is surveying, casing the place to figure out where this meeting is going to take place amongst the sort of upper private rooms?
I can.
And how are you going to do that? What is your technique for that?
I don't know. I guess maybe like working my way into the janitorial staff for the day. There's some like maintenance dwarves or something like that they have around.
Sure, that sounds like deception to me. To lie your way in, it's going to be difficulty 6. You know, they don't have a whole lot of infosec, but they know the people that work there, that kind of thing. So I think that seems like a reasonable.
I was just looking through my stuff. I was like, oh, my dagger has that distracting feature. That's probably not helpful.
No.
That's a weird feature. Ooh, look at this. I'm going to go.
That's when you go stabby stab.
So I think it's a 3 and 2.
Yeah.
Top rows of each roll. Oh my.
What
That's
the what?
3. Wow. 8, 9, 10.
Oh, you're there for one day and then they offer you a promotion to head of the
Guys, I'm going clean. I found a super gig.
One of the things being is that you have enough alchemy that you know how to handle things like the unguents and the oils and the perfumes and things like that. And you're able to essentially fade into the woodwork of that and get through. And you will be able to identify from this operation that there is one of the upper second floor chambers that's sort of towards the back that has a particular level of privacy, that there is a more secure, quiet, hidden back entrance that has some people on it that Junior will be using to get in, but you will have that location settled.
Nice. I'm just obsessed with like the shot of like we've seen Daneric making all these bombs and dangerous alchemical poisons, where he's like very carefully pouring vials, and we start with a shot of the same thing of like very carefully pouring one vial into the other, and it backs up, and he's like making a like bath oils or something. There's all these like pinks and perfumes and everywhere around.
Oh, the fizziness on this is very good, young man. Really excellent. And you come out, you smell delightful when you're done with this. That's the other thing. I actually have a fellow gamer who does scented candles, and like that's their household thing. And he gave me a copy of White Hack, the hardcover of that. And 3 years later, it still has the most floral pungency of anything I've ever. It's like a scented candle. It's crazy. So that setup, that info is gotten. Who is then going in to plant the bomb? We've got a couple people who have strong skills for that.
Sound like that would be me.
So yeah, you know the secret way in, and you've got the spider to make it easier for you to move around and stuff. So
I'm picturing like exiting a first story window and getting into a second story window or that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So I think that's a stealth roll, and I think your magics make it difficulty 6. I think it is not as challenging because of that.
Okay, that's not great, but 1 success.
1 success. So I think I'm going to tick up the Copperman heat a little bit as a cost there. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds about right.
Okay. So you get in beforehand. You've got this shard with this glitter bomb attached. You've kind of timed that out. This is probably even before you've gone to give the info. So where do you put the glitter bomb? What's in the room that you put it that it's hidden but will have maximal effect, and the visibility through the shard will work?
I think maybe Deneric left me a little package of makeups and perfumes or whatever to grab and like create a display on the table, so that it's like behind bottles and
Oh yeah, you've got a complimentary gift basket that you've put in there to treat the honored guests, and you will have that set up. And I think that there's no problem getting that in there. I don't think we necessarily need to roll for you getting out. Exit the same way, and you're pretty hopeful about this setup. All right, I need to roll something.
Wait, what would you be rolling? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, the GM does roll in this game, but right now I'm
just saying, like situationally,
I'm sure it's just
so perfect and controlled.
I'm sure it's just to like see how much treasure we get or something.
Yeah,
it's like a finesse die to see how many people are impressed by us.
This is actually more. I'm using the fortune fate die a little bit, where on the D6 a 6 is more chaos, more confusion. The plan doesn't go as you want it to. I got a 1 on that. So you're freaked out. Like he might be getting here at this time. What's the time for getting? And then he gets there at like exactly the right time, and that Soraka has already made her way in. She's lounging there. You've seen her handmaidens kind of get themselves into position and things like that. And of course, the place is crowded. You know, there's lots of people there. So let me ask you, Rook, what is it that you're doing to boost the attention in the present or in the aftermath?
It would definitely have to be in the aftermath.
Okay.
Is what I want. So, so what am I doing? I think that wow. I think it almost makes sense to have gone and sent, or I want like something that will have incented people to come to the salon, like to like almost passed out leaflets for free, you know, something or other, so that there's just like more rumble and tumble of things. I know, nice invitations sent to ladies who are almost at that sort of financial level to be able to go to this thing, where they get like an invitation to tour the facilities.
Let's have you roll charm.
Okay, I got some of that.
And basically, this is to increase the effectiveness.
Yes, I'm hoping that it will. But dice don't always love me. I should just do what Brian does and re-roll every time. This whole selecting thing is so slow. Oh, I got a 9 and a couple of 1s.
Okay, so you get 2 botches on there.
Ugh, yeah. And this was what? Charm?
This is charm. So you can ignore 1 botch.
Yes. Ugh. Okay. And what did I need? 6s or
6s?
Okay, so I have 2. That would give me 1. I don't want to take our risk up just for this. I just want a few ladies coming in that are of a certain gossipy level.
I'm going to increase the Copperman heat by just 1 tick.
Okay.
But the place is filled. Like they've come. They've heard about this new perfumer who's doing really interesting dwarven work with sandalwood and myrrh. So they're,
we perfume the letters with it. So.
Yes, absolutely. The scents attract their attention. And there is that moment when you've got that up there, you've got the remote detonation, and he arrives in the room. She talks to him companionably for a while. You see exactly how not smart Junior is. He tells her all about the things that they've been working on and all this stuff and what's happening and all the things. And if he had any vital information, she would have it in her hands right now. Before she maneuvers over and carefully, draws him over to the bed. And we get to that moment of flagrante delicti. Let me ask you this. Is this in the midst of the act or just before or as they're finishing? Is a rude question, but I'm going to put that to you, Danerick.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would definitely be most effective when they're naked, to not be able to deny as much. But I'll leave it to Rook's judgment, since she's the one having to watch how far they get into things before she sets it off.
At what point, Rook, are you like, I can't take this anymore?
I think that there's part of me that would like to get this over with. However, I want them to be as sort of confused as possible, so I think it will go off when they're finishing up.
Okay. And you describe this as loud. Does it sound like a bomb exploding? What does it sound like?
Oh, what does it sound like? I think it should have a sound like sort of celebration fireworks.
Yes. So loud bangs, but also like whistles and sort of thing.
So that will explode, and you're outside. And even though they have the sort of the closed, the windows and stuff, they'll probably be out through the various slats of those, the burst of glitter as the fireworks, and the chamber will blast out from under doors and things like that, and fill the air of the hallway up there with glitter, and everyone's confused. But there's also kind of that smell of smoke as well. Her handmaids are trying to keep people from going in, but there is that mad rush of people up there. Just as as that chaos is going on, you will see that some of the Coppermen people have arrived, clearly dispatched here to see what's going on. And that will start to actually get messy. And then there is that moment when somebody pries the door open and they've pulled their clothing on. They've done that, but they are encased in glitter. They're trying to get it out of their mouth, out of their eyes, out of their ears. They're stumbling around. It was a small enclosed room, so the pressure of that, they're probably still deafened. So they're not entirely certain what's going on out here as they stumble out into the hallway. And within moments, people have seen them, things going on, and their handmaids will try to push him to go out through the secret entrance, and they're trying to get her covered and out and into another private room. But you can see that there are some Copperman agents who are there, including Talania. And she actually looks more angry than anyone else, not necessarily about this scene, but the fact that the glitter has carried far enough that even when she comes in, it gets on her. And it is a mess. And they will clear the place within a few moments. All right. I'm going to roll something. All right. So let me ask you, what is it that is your intent to have happen? Like, what is it that, then let's talk the group as the fallout for this successful thing.
First and foremost is that Soraka is completely outside of, no one will listen to her or give her anything, whether she's killed or whatever is beside the thing. We simply want her not in the organization as a credible voice.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, it does have the advantage of putting Talania with a leg up over Junior. So let's say Talania pops up a little bit further in the rankings for lieutenant.
So within the next few days, you're starting to hear about the fact that there was some kind of incident that started. I mean, people don't want to say their names, but they are certainly identifying Junior. They are certainly identifying Soraka. Soraka kind of disappears out. You will through your rumor mill will hear that she's been put in a private household for the moment, and restricted from visitors, from shard communications, from any of that stuff. That they, right now she's kind of on a house arrest from Barnabas until he decides what's going to happen with her.
And over that couple of days, I think if we could use some of the informant points that we know for the Copper Men to drop hints that, it was something related with the Silver Hands that were involved in this, like that, I could just see that eating away at Barnabas, because, they knew before he did. They managed to get past his security and pull off an attack, but the whole point of the attack was just to point out to him and everyone what was going on and embarrass them.
And yeah, you will definitely see Barnabas clearly treats this as a personal betrayal, kind of undercuts his own position, but also is worried about the Silver Hands. Clearly, there was a gap here. Something happened. The other major fallout that I'll leave you with before we go on to the next point is, you will very quickly hear that Junior blames Talania for this and believes that Talania set this up, and believes that Talania is the person behind this, not the Silver Hands. Or if it's the Silver Hands, then she's working with the Silver Hands. And Junior will kind of go to war posture. Both he and Talania, they start calling in their people. They start putting them in places close by. Like that is clearly turning up the boil there. And Zinka stays quiet.
She needs to.
Yeah, because that is her mother. And she doesn't want to get wrapped up in what's happening. So that is what's going on amongst the Coppermen.
Nice.
So let's come back around. This is a couple of days at time. Pod is still ill, and it doesn't look like this is particularly triggered the Risk Eaters. Like they haven't twigged to it being an organized thing. These look like happenstance right now. So what's next? You've put the boil on here. Things are heating up. So let me ask you, Danerick, what you think the next step is going to be. What you want to look into, or what you want to do, either one.
Yeah. So the Silver Hands are basically a gang made out of 3 separate gangs. You have Dance's men, you have Grimport's men, and you have the Bone Harvesters. So with the Coppermen already up on the boil and looking to fight, if we can turn Dance and Hakata against Grimport, exile him, kill off his people, whatever, if we make it visible that a third of the Silver Hands have just been thrown out, that in and of itself may be enough to spark the Coppermen to go at them because they see a weakness. We may still have to do some more work after that, but I think that's sort of the next step in things.
So what do you think, Deltra? Rook? What is he going to do?
No, I think we definitely have to get the Silver Hand stirred up. The easiest thing is, of course, to use the idea that the whole encrypted face was somehow tied to Grimport. Let's see here, but how is that going to...
I wonder if we just somehow convince Grimport that Hakata and Dance are going to turn on him. And then he'll take actions that will force them to.
Yeah, if we kind of two-prong that, where he gets convinced that they're going to, so that when they when Dance does start the accusations, he's more likely to react.
Yeah, I definitely see Dance as being more of a powder keg, easier to push to action.
Well, and he has to do is get the word that essentially to see that it's Hakata and Dance sleeping together. That will give him that first sort of thing of that Dance has got the thing up, and then when Dance comes after him.
So sort of simultaneous social engineering, someone working on Dance to start to put the Chirana connection for him. And then somebody else working on Grimport to make him nervous and the revelations on that. Does that seem right?
No.
And is there a third prong?
Yeah, I think that it might be a good time for what's her name? Zinka to find out that Unaya is a bone harvester. Because that's going to give her, she's going to have to react to that and the silver hands thing. And my hope is that it will actually make her want to go after the silver hands.
Okay.
But whatever it does, she either steps back away from it or she goes all in.
Like the idea that if she gets word that, like if she gets the idea that Unaya was seducing her for gang purposes, then maybe she would back Junior's play when he goes after the silver hands.
Or back Talania. One, she needs to demonstrate that she's on Barnabas's side. So, if that makes any sense, and not her mother's. Mm-hmm. So she has to be ready to do whatever Barnabas says is a thing. And if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it puts her in an active, like, I need to, okay, cool, yeah.
So we've got 3 targets. We've got 3 PCs. So let's divvy those tasks out then. Who wants to take Daunt? Who wants to take Grimport? And who wants to deal with Unaya?
I'll take Daunt's just because I think it'll take the least like skillful social maneuvering to get him into the place that we want, and I'm sort of lower than the 2 of you on that scale.
Okay. I probably, with charm and deception and a few other things, should be able to make it look like Daunt that Grimport is backing up. Sorry, I keep forgetting her name. Let me check. It's like Chirano. Chirana, thank you.
I thought so I thought Patrick was going to do Daunt's.
Okay. So I thought that if you took Daunt's, you were showing them that they were sorry. Okay, so you are going to make Daunt's look bad to Grimport, or you're going to make Grimport look bad to Daunt, or Daunt look bad to so there's the which one you're doing. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to convince Daunt's that Grimport was behind the attack. So I'm going to try and turn Daunt's against Grimport.
Okay. All right then. And I want Grimport to find out then that Daunt's and Hakata are sleeping together.
Nice.
Wait, or I can do Unaya. It's actually, which would you rather do?
I'm not clear what we're doing with Unaya. I'm happy to take Unaya. I'm not sure what.
We're revealing to Zinka that Unaya is a bone harvester and trying to like implant the idea that Unaya was seducing her intentionally to get into the organization.
So we're going to use. Okay, so yeah, we've got Talania's stock rising, and then we just need her to.
Yeah,
be
we'll
more
see.
active.
We'll
I
see
guess. I wanna be okay.
what rolls out from that. So this is kind of done simultaneously, but let's look at the different actions. Let's start with Patrick. You're working to get Daunt's more suspicious of Grimport. Tie him in to the person who killed the mage that encrypted his face, that prevented him from ever seeing his face again. So tell me, what is your methodology?
So he's had Dance has had Tirana sort of in the doghouse on watch for a while.
For a couple of years now.
Yeah. So I think I'd go financial.
Okay.
Like that seems low tech, like not gonna have magical fingerprints on it sort of way, but like a sudden discovery of some sort of like money transfer from Grimport to Tirana right before that happened. Some sort of financial link there, because money's always a good trail for people to believe.
Okay. So we know they do have banks and things like that. So you need to probably find so you need to make up some fake documents, right?
Yeah.
Do you want that as your other cell, like forgers?
What do people think about that? Does anybody have another particular idea for a close-in loyal cell?
I love the idea of forgers. It's the most constantly useful set of skills to have for what we do.
Cool. And I sort of like the idea that, this world is so enthralled by and in the grip of cryptomancy that, like, purely physical, mundane means may be more overlooked.
Absolutely. So let's consider this. Let's look at what you do, and let's figure out. Let's have you roll for their 4 dice for their forgery to get the paperwork together, and then I think then after that it's you planting the evidence, right?
Okay, cool.
So roll me a 4.
And they work like us. It's like 4 and 1.
Yep.
Okay. Oh my. 6, 6, 7, 9.
Okay. So tell me, let's put a face to this cell. What is your forger like? Human, elf, dwarf? What are we thinking here? Orc?
Orc. I like elf.
Okay.
It's all like inks and papers. It's all natural elements, but that are being like dictated and controlled and perfected through the elven mastery sort of thing.
And what elf, male, female?
Female.
Female. And what is her name?
You're very cruel, man.
I know I am.
Lorien.
Lorien. And so you go to see Lorien, and Lorien is super touchy-feely. Like when you come in, she is right in your personal space, and she goes to hug you, and she gives you, kisses on the cheek, and as you're telling her what to do, she's close by you, and she puts her hand on your shoulder, and she touches your own hand, and she does that the whole time that you're working with her. She always does this.
This is what's horrible about elves.
Yeah. Every once in a while, she does a thing where you kind of don't realize it, but she's kind of up and she's kind of stroking, where you'd have the beard, maybe running her finger along your ear, kind of touching your earring, and she's super tactile. And you give her the details on this, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I can do that for you. I can do that for you, Tanner. Oh, just I can do it just so good."
That's great. I'm just maybe less descriptive. I believe you.
All right. Well, give me 3 days and I'll have that for you.
3 days is that's a lot of time.
Puts both her hands on you. For you, I'll work around the clock and do it in 2.
And I think in his idea of like seduction or playing in here, he'll reach up and like very awkwardly but like emotionally pat one of her hands and touching him like, yes, we're good friends and we're working on this together. Oh god, oh god, oh god.
Okay. And she will get to work, and she will produce a set of oldish records and things like that, like in a packet of financials from a dead banker, with some transfer records. It's far enough away that there's no echoes in any of the shards, so it can't be traced that way. But so we've just got this paperwork.
And I like that twist of like finding a bank worker that's just recently died and like tying it into something that was found in his stuff or whatever. That's cool. I like that.
And then placing it, getting it. I mean, you look around for the place that Don's will be, and this is going to be sleight of hand, essentially, to get it on scene that somebody's going to find it. You already know who reports straight to Don's. We established that info network, so let's have you roll sleight of hand.
Oh wow, I'm actually good at this. A full 5 die roll.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is gonna go terribly. Okay, let's go. Ooh. 7, 7, 8, 10.
Okay.
I fear that you are sucking all the luck out of the room.
I'm sorry, guys.
So, yeah.
But these dusty financials are primo.
Yeah. On screen, we see, one of Dance's people. They bust somebody, and they're going through the stuff that you're taking after this extortion or whatever, and they come upon these financials like they got lifted from somebody else. They can't quite figure out the chain of custody, but that doesn't matter to them. But they will look at it. They handed it off to their boss, who his eyes go wide when he realizes the implications of this. And that he runs it up the chain. We see on screen Daunt's meeting privately with him, and this guy hands him the folio. And we see Daunt's going through it. And there's no expression on the mask. We can't see any of that, but it is the body that tenses. All of it tenses and locks.
Nice.
Let's come to how you are working Grimport.
Yeah. So you said he has a brewery, right? I mean, he handles the brewing?
Yes, he is the one who does brewing, spicing, consumables. Doesn't do perfumes like some other dwarves, but he does work in that kind of alchemy and thing.
So I assume that the Silver Hands sort of have a particularly luxe bar that serves the group, just because that would be where all their specialty brews and the best of the best would be.
Okay. We'll call it it's called the Demon Mouse.
Okay. And so the Demon Mouse, I like that. So I almost want to do something similar, where essentially it's records of like to be sent to Hakata's private suite or whatever, they have a history of orders that I would create that would be like her preferred brew and Johnson's preferred brew. If that makes any sense. And then it's just that kind of thing of that those records, you know, sort of sitting around that has happened on a sort of over and over again, that essentially she keeps those in stock there.
Okay.
So not Grimport's preferred, not anyone else's preferred, just the two of theirs. And there's a sort of record, and I will make sure that I've just caught like what the most recent calendar of their assignations are, so that I can make sure that those dates get hit. So that would be me finding that information.
Okay. So let's have you for actually crafting what is going to be written. That's going to be a deception roll.
Okay. So that's like 4, right?
I believe it is 4 for you.
Okay.
I do not think that your well, actually, your liar does work in this because you know how to lie.
I lie. I'll make it look like the sort of artifact that would exist. There we go. So I have no idea. Oh my God. Okay, so 2 10s, a 7, and a 6.
All right. So you find the right paper. You know, so you know what it looks like. You know what the seals. You get to go through some of the records. At some point, you write up this thing, and you know you take it down to Lorian, and she's like, "Oh, Rook," and again she's touching your clothing, and she's running. She always touches your hair.
Well, that's the thing is, unlike Danerick, I'm perfectly comfortable with it. So, like, I sit down, and when I talk to her, I sit down right next to her, and we go through the things, and it's all shoulder to shoulder, and I trace my finger over like what's important, but then touch her finger. It's just very sort of. I have no problem with any of that.
Oh yeah, and she she enjoys your company, and she will say, "I can do this. You've done the legwork on it. I can get this for you," and she will.
I stop and I touch her cheeks and I say, "You look a little tired. Are you sure?"
I was working very hard for lovely Danerick, but I got it done.
Oh, you are amazing.
I am.
Is there anything I can do for you?
I understand that Danerick was making some perfumes.
Oh, they were sort of amazing.
I wouldn't say no to one of those scents.
Okay.
I want to know what a dwarven perfume is like. It doesn't smell like coal or that kind of thing.
Well, what I got a little sample of was something with a lot of sandalwood, and then the most amazing grasses. It almost smelled masculine, and then there was a little note of something, of a spice that just raised it up. It was definitely.
Yes, I would like a little bit of that.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
She'll pop you on the nose. Beep.
Exactly, boop. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: you've got this material. It is the text of it, the information in it is solid. It is super incriminating, and you've built it on in knowing the schedule and things like that. You've got these documents that are exact. So how are you getting this into Grimport's hands?
Oh, it's easy. I know what documentation he does come to check, and what I do is I make sure that that's been knocked off the desk. Like, part of it has been knocked off the desk. Like, clearly some of it is going back behind the desk, and these receipts are also back there behind the desk. So when he goes to pull those out, he will find it just like it just fell in there.
So I think that's either stealth or sleight of hand to get these things in place.
Let's see what I have. Aren't those both in the same group?
They are agility and dexterity.
Well, I will choose the one that I'm best at. But
they're both 3s.
Yes, so it matters not. Let's see here. I think then that I will use the sleight of hand. Is the idea behind it.
Okay. Get in there, drop it, no traces, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I hate rolling. Got a bunch. I've got a success, I think.
Yeah.
Damn it. All right. I will spend a risk. I hate to do this.
Okay. So your risk goes up to 12.
What does that mean?
That is a number. If I roll under it, then the risk eaters come for you with an attack.
Roll under it with a what?
Well, normally it's percentile. Right now, it's just a 12% chance on any particular session that the risk eaters will come for you.
Still significant.
Interesting.
Okay. So you're going to flip that to a success?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you get 2 successes. You get that in place. And you get in a place where he has to go and get it. Like, he can't just ignore that these things have dropped down. And we'll see on screen, we will see him pulling the stuff up, and we'll see him looking through it, and like goes through it again, and kind of stops, and he will get quiet, but you will see him on screen, him calling in his like closest people, and while he doesn't make any maneuvers, like he isn't overtly going and getting anything, he is telling them to, pull in your things, get button down money, get ready in case something happens here soon. Like he puts that alert throughout them, and you will see him on screen start writing letters to various financials within Hakata's empire, and sending letters out to start pulling things that would be under her and his control over to just his control. So that is that. We see that bubbling up even as we see Dance getting angrier. Meanwhile, Deltra. Unaya is a bone harvester. She works for Hakata. Hakata doesn't know that that Unaya is has a relationship with Zinka, and of course Zinka is unaware of her identity as a bone harvester. So how do you want to play this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe try to just steal Unaya's mask and maybe deliver it to Talania? Does that sound like a good idea to everybody, or anyone have a better?
There's the sigil that they use too, and she probably carries that because I think the mask she puts in her shadow cage, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So but the sigil she probably carries on her. You could just, when they're there together, drop that out of her pocket so that it stays on the floor behind.
That's true.
There's a good chance that,
I mean, Zika's pretty magically talented, so
Yeah.
I presume she would then be able to,
And if she has psychometry, may I make a suggestion that you not touch the sigil?
Well, that's That's going to be tough.
Yeah, it'll make it more challenging, but you've got really good sleight of hand.
Okay, so I guess that's the plan.
So, Deltra. Essentially, you find an opportunity. You guys have tracked. You know a little bit about the schedule of Zinka and Unaya. You know, Zinka is laying low, so she is trying to be even more cautious than usual. But you're going to try and, you know, cross paths with Unaya immediately before or after to leave that cycle behind. And so I imagine that this is a quiet inn, not terrible, but kind of in an isolated part of town that you fall into. You can easily, you know, assume a different identity. You know, no one would recognize you as Deltra. And you're going to try and do that brush lift, that careful. And how is it that you're doing this so you don't touch it? Are you using a tool to do this, or what do you think?
Yeah, definitely some kind of yeah, I imagine it's like it's kind of like a magician's trick, like a bag that where you put something into it and then you can turn it inside out and show that it's empty, and because there's some kind of hidden little spot. So
it's the quick bag to cover it, you know, and it'll be in the bag for just a moment, so it'll be a flash in any view. So here's what I'm going to say. This is going to be a sleight of hand test. The challenge to do it is an 8. I think it's going to be difficult. But you can always fall back to a 6 difficulty if you're willing to have touched it. So difficulty 8, sleight of hand, and you ignore a botch.
So 1 success.
1 success. Now you could make that 2 successes if you wanted to, you know, flip that to a success.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
All right. You're losing money not doing it. So what do we see on screen? What do we see you do? How does this look?
I think wherever sure, yeah, Delta like comes in, refills their cups of whatever they're drinking, and you see Delta's hand basically go into a bag, and like as she passes by, a quick movement, maybe like she overfills the cup so it's like spills out a little bit at the same moment, and then right before she leaves, it gets dropped into a bag or whatever, something of so many names. What's her name? Zinka. It gets dropped into Zinka's
absolutely
bag.
And we will we see that happen. We see them go their separate ways. Not long after, on off screen from you, but on screen we'll see Unaya looking around for the sigil and starting to get panicked, like now she's scared. Did someone lift it off of her? Does does Hakata know? Did and she goes back to the tavern and starts tearing the room apart. Essentially drops the coin, and she is looking all over the place. But meanwhile, eventually we'll also see Zinka return quietly, cloak over her shoulders, back to her household to kind of keep out of her father's way, and she will go through and she will find that sigil just dropped in the side there, clearly fell out. I mean, you can tell. I mean, you've placed it in such a way that it looks like that. And you can see her eyes narrow, and you see that war in her of, if my father finds out about this, I'm dead. That this is the end. But also just that absolute anger of betrayal. And you will see Zinka gather up, all of her implements and stuff, and you can tell that she is going to go on the war path. She is going to get ready to do something. Like, she's not just going to sit around on this. And so we see that particular fuse burning away. And the heat is up on all of them. You can see the cracks on both sides. The splinters are starting to form. Next time, we'll figure out how you light the fuse under this powder keg, and how you are going to use it to your advantage. Because when this all gets blown up, there are going to be lots of pieces and opportunities for you to pick things up, to add to your pockets, as it were. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. In that case, I am going to stop the broadcast here, and next session will be the final session of this Cryptomancer run.